everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Uh, on this Forage Drops, I'll be talking about tips for a good stand establishment for the next season. So let's get started. Right now, it's a really good time to plan ahead of the growing season because we can be planning on the animal nutrient requirements that we will have on our farm based on the herds that we expect to have. And there's also need to think about the size and the type of the livestock operation that you have. So you can be managing the area as you need to try to have as many days of the animals grazing. You should consider to be able to choose which species, which forages you're going to have, or even the type of management that you're going to apply on your pastures. You should consider the management skills and the time that you're able to put into those activities. Uh, Particularly this year, we will need to have a really good plan on how we are going to deal with nutrient management. Not only knowing exactly the nutrient levels that you have on your soil, but also how much you are going to be able to put in terms of fertilizer rates and which sources you are going to be able to use. And it's still time to go and take your soil samples so you can assess a pH and apply lime. Usually a lime takes some time to react in the soil and raise that pH, but it's better to put it and start your season, and the product will be there reacting with the soil to raise that pH up for the forages that we are going to have there. Then something that we really need to be on top of is to do a proper site selection based on the topography, based on the slope, based on the nutrient levels that you have there. If you're going to establish a new forage there, especially if you're thinking about establishing a legume, it's good to make sure that you're starting with a range of pH that you should, and just make sure that you have nutrients there. It's similar to forages, just that legumes have higher requirements for pH and soil fertility. That's why I mentioned legumes before. And something very important for both a new area that you're going to establish, but also for areas that you already have under pastures, is to make sure that you're controlling those weeds that are getting there, because weeds will be a competitors with the water and nutrients that the forages need to grow. So it's very important for us that we're on top of knowing which weeds we have on that area and what are our options to control them. On summer, most of weeds will be grasses. They are highly competitive, and especially if you're going to establish a new area, it's really important to start on a clean, well-prepared land, because you are gonna have the planted forage growing, so it's gonna be really small. And if you already have other weeds on that area and you're shading the forage, it's gonna slow down or you even compromise the stand establishment for this season. Then, like I mentioned before, first step should be to take a soil sample. In general, we wanna sample a area that's up to 10 acres and collect around 15 to 20 samples to 0 to 4 or 0 to 6 inches on the soil depth, that surface. And the best way to collect the samples is to do a zigzag in the area. So you go around with a shovel or a auger, a soil auger, and collecting those samples and putting inside a bucket. Then you mix that soil really well, and we have soil bags that those are the ones that you will send to the lab, and you can get those on your extension office. You can get them from your extension agents. Then you can also just bring the sample inside a Ziploc or another type of bag, and then put inside a soil bag in the extension office. So you can send that and for analysis. This analysis will give you a report that's gonna tell you the pH of that area and the nutrient levels that you have. And based on the forage that you are going to be growing in that area, the soils lab will provide you with a recommendation for nitrogen and potassium rates for this growing season as well. Then something that we do need to talk about is land preparation. So if you're doing a new establishment, a new stand, it's really important to start with a clean, well-prepared seed bed to really make sure that you're going to have the best chance for plants to germinate. Just a mention when we will be thinking about establishing a mixture of species. This is just going to be on fall, so this is just a mention, something to keep in mind right now as you plan your entire season, is that at that time, if you're going to establish a mixture of seeds on perennial pasture, especially if it's a grass pasture, we will need to make sure that we're going to remove that excessive forage mass from the growing season before we overseed with cool season species, just to make sure that we're going to have the seed with proper contact with the soil there. Then anytime that you're establishing a new pasture or planting, interseeding or overseeding an area, always try to get the best seeds that you can get. And I'm talking about the quality of the seeds and having them being a certified source. So you decrease the chances of introducing weeds to your farm. And like I mentioned several times already, it's really important that we know the proper seed depth that those seeds need to be, so we can assure a proper seed soil contact for them to germinate properly. Then for some forages, sometimes it's important to think ahead of time, several months, to put the order in to be able to have those seeds coming through. And if we're using legumes, always make sure that you're using inoculated seeds. If you're not sure if the inoculant is still viable on seeds that you had stored somewhere, you can always re-inoculate before you plant them, but really make sure that you're going to have legume seeds inoculated. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefits of the nitrogen fixation that legumes can do. And know the proper planting window that you need to plant each species for the best success that you can have from that. And also the planting methods that you should be using for specific seed sizes and species, just to be sure that you're gonna have the best germination and chances of good establishment on that area. Always check the seeding rate recommended for each species, because this is going to be what is going to be necessary for a good establishment on that area. Then for For the nitrogen and the potassium fertilizer rates, the total rate that we would be applying for a forage, the recommendation is to split apply that. So generally at least 3 times, 3 to 4 split applications. Let's pretend that you are going to have a recommendation that's 200 pounds of nitrogen and 200 pounds of K. So if you are going to split apply that in four times, you would be applying 50 pounds each one of those times throughout the whole season. This way, you guarantee best use efficiency of the nutrients by that forage, just because you're going to be putting the nutrients at the time that the forage really needs to be using. And because the plant will be on active growth, as opposed to go there on the beginning of the season, put the 200 of each nutrient at that time, and then expect that the nutrient will be available in the soil for the entire season. Sometimes if we have as a heavy rainfall, if you applied a heavier fertilization rate, or like the total rate of each one of those nutrients, with that heavy rain, it can actually take some of that nutrient of there through runoff and leaching, and compromise the availability of nutrients for the forests. If you can, always use mixtures of species when we are using annual species. And in some cases, you can also have perennial species mixed. Um, Something that it's really beneficial to have is to try to have a legume with us, especially with the prices of nitrogen lately, because the legumes would be supplying some of that nitrogen for the grass. But even when you're using annual species on your grazing system, you can mix some species up so you can have a better forage distribution throughout the year, and relying more on grazing than having to supply hay for your animals, your herds. Something that we do need to think about and talk about is if any of your current pastures needs renovation, or if you really just need to go there and start from the ground again, because that is no longer productive, or has too much weeds, and not going to be an option to try to control the weeds that you have while trying to maintain the perennial grass, perennial forage that you have growing there right now. So if renovation of a pasture is what you need, then there are ways that we can do that. And one of the best ways is to really work the forage management, the grazing management that you are using there. So one of the keys is to try to really avoid overgrazing area, and making sure that you're going to be giving the proper time of the resting interval that the plant needs to be able to restore its growth and its energy, to really be able to establish well, reestablish well on the areas, and make sure that you're working on the fertility management that you're using there, and trying to be on top of controlling the weeds that are on that area. Then it's always helpful to out professional help, because through that you can discuss a plan to recuperate that area, and if you choose to recuperate that pasture, and we can help you walk you through a process, a plan for that, with the steps that you need to be following this year. So with that, I conclude what I had for today. Something that really I advise you to do is to always seek out help with your extension agents. and our extension team from the Thompson Livestock and Forages team. We are here to help you, and we are looking forward to interact with you and contribute to the success of your farm. My email is here on the screen. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate your time watching this video, and I hope you have enjoyed it. See you on the next one.